Welcome to the Helping Families Be Happy podcast, where we explore the often messy world of family, love, and relationships. I'm your host for this podcast, Adina Oberman, a mom, former preschool teacher, picture book lover, and member of the Familius marketing team. I'm also the creator of Big Books for Little Hands, a site dedicated to connecting parents and teachers with the best books for the ups and downs of life with little ones. We welcome today's guest, Jenny Sundstedt. Jenny lives in her home state of Colorado, where she grew up with an overactive imagination and a desire to tell stories. She writes long and short fiction for adults, picture books, and lots of to-do lists. For 10 years, she was part of the creative team for the Northern Colorado Writers Conference, which gave her the opportunity to learn from many industry professionals. Together, she and her husband raised 2 boys and 3 goofy dogs. She's a low adrenaline outdoor enthusiast, which means she mostly likes to spend time in nature, noticing the little quiet things. This episode aligns with the Familius habits, read together, and learn together. You can learn more about the Familius 10 Habits of Happy Families by going to the Habit Hub blog on familius.com. Welcome, Jenny. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Adina. Thank you for having me. It's fun to be here.
I'm excited for you to share more about your work and your upcoming book in our solar system. So can you talk a little bit about where the story came from and how this book was created?
Sure. This might be kind of a long story for a short book, but my own interest in space goes way back to when I was very young, and my dad, who was a historian, was also an amateur astronomer, and he had this really cool telescope that had, it was motorized, so it could track things in the sky, and he built this little observatory in the backyard. So I have some very fuzzy memories of being awakened in the night to go outside and look at the night sky. So that's where my interest began. And then I have an older sister, and she and I have continued to sort of bond over space things. We like to stargaze, and we've gone on eclipse trips. And so that's been a big part of my life. And in our solar system is sort of based on the classic rhyme of Over in the Meadow. And that was a book that when my boys were young, they absolutely loved it. They loved all the little animal families that, were going about their lives in the meadow. So at one point I kind of realized, oh, well, solar system sort of aligns with the structure of this poem. So I went with that. And so I wrote it up, and I did this thing that writers often do, which is I wrote it and I put it in a drawer, and I left it there for a really long time. And then I rediscovered it one day and decided just to take it to my critique group just for fun. And they said, hey, you might want to think about doing some more with this. So that's what I did.
I think this book brings out the natural wonder that I think we all feel as kids when we begin to learn about space and just how much is going on above us and around us. I think that probably that feeling of wonder and that desire to explore that you felt in your own observatory with your family definitely shines through in the pages of the book. Do you have particular things that you envision as people read the book, or maybe tips for teachers or educators who might be using this book in a classroom or in a library?
Oh, yeah. So I'm not a teacher, and I did a lot of volunteering in elementary when my kids were there, and I worked as an elementary paraprofessional for a while, but I want to be clear, I'm not a teacher. So I did ask a couple of friends of mine who are teachers and who have read the book, and rhyming format of the story is apparently a very popular format for read-alongs. And also one of my friends suggested that it might be a good sort of school performance because there are some very active verbs in the text, and the kids could, sizzle and twirl and do all those things. So I also think it helps kids connect with space. Space is so big and so far away that I think it can be overwhelming to think of. I remember the first time I heard about how long a light year was, I just almost couldn't even comprehend that. So I think with the sort of the anthropomorphizing the characteristics of the different planets in the sun can help kids connect with those sort of like family members.
I love the way you put that. I think, yeah, it's a very abstract concept, something that you certainly wouldn't be able to kind of grasp on your own. Um, I think as you're talking about the anthropomorphized characters, I think it lends itself really to such a natural um, way that teachers and educators use books in the classroom. So I can certainly imagine a dramatic play scenario or and and children acting it out and singing at the same time. So can you talk a little bit more about how the book came from this idea that you were working on that you shoved in a drawer to a physical book that you can hold in your hands?
Yes, so that was a really interesting process after I had sent it out on submission, and then it was accepted by Familius, which was very, very exciting day for me. And part of the process that I hadn't anticipated was that I was assigned an editor, and we worked together on the text, and she was really great, and it was a really thorough editorial process, which I maybe hadn't anticipated for a picture book. It was very collaborative, and she just made the book, she helped me to make the book. We both made the book stronger and better. And I was really grateful for that because this was my first experience with a picture book, and it just has been really great. And then as the process went along, I would get emailed samples of how the illustrations were coming along, and that was really exciting. And I'm just really, really excited to actually have the book in my hands one of these days soon.
And we're really excited to share the your book with the world. It's such an incredible book. As you mentioned, I love the anthropomorphized characters. I love kind of the realistic look of the planets and the whole solar system. So I think readers, especially our STEM and STEAM enthusiasts, are going to love it. I want to make sure that our listeners can get in touch with you. So where can they find you online?
I have a blog, and it's jensunwriter.com, and on Facebook, Jenny Sundstedt, and on Instagram, Jensunwriter. And those are probably the top three right now. I'm good. In the new year, I'm going to do a little bit of tweaking with social media. So it's on my to-do list.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for being with us today, Jenny.
And thank you so much for having me. This is a lot of fun.
As we conclude today's podcast, I'd like to thank Familius for their support in bringing this podcast to your ears and your heart. We'd be thrilled if you subscribed to the podcast and left us a review. And when you're ready for the next amazing book adventure, we'd be honored if you'd choose a book from Familius. One step at a time, we can make the world a happier place.